Hello, Mr. and Mrs. America. This is Kevin again with my words of wisdom. Gosh, I know I'm so smart. Let's talk about China and the trade war. Okay, so a couple of big questions. How did we get to the point where we are with China, where we are $850 billion upside down in our trade with them? So the big question is, did American companies go overseas, open up in China, start making stuff to ship back to America because of cheaper labor? A little. Did companies in China see an opening to start making stuff and ship it to America for sale? To an extent, yes. Was that supported financially by their government? To an extent, yes. All the stuff that we do, the shirts, the clothing, the furniture, and all that. I mean, you got 1 billion people, you've got natural resources, you've got a government who's doing currency manipulation just to keep the price low, just to keep money coming in. But what do you think that us basically sending, quote unquote, $850 billion a year to China do for China's economy? Well, we all know what it did for China's economy. They were number one in growth for a long time. So that begs the question, why isn't Mexico? I mean, you got we think of Mexico and all the people trying to leave Mexico and Central America coming in here saying, I'm poor, I want to go here and work. They have a lot of workers. We know they keep coming here. Why isn't some businessmen in Mexico? And there is business in Mexico. You go to Mexican City, it's a very thriving city. You got Carlos Slim's one of the richest people in the world. Even if you have a U.S. company and you've got cheaper labor there, and I know sending jobs overseas, they're already in China. If you buy something with China, why don't you just go open up a manufacturing place in Mexico, which would be cheaper than doing it in America, and start saying, okay, how much can we get the wages for down there? What you have to understand is it costs a lot to ship stuff from China to America. I looked at diapers and socks. Socks I can buy for, I would say probably about half as much as I can buy wholesale socks here in America. But then you have to ship them, which at the end of it makes them only cost about 15% less than I can do it here in America. Now, I'm no international trade guru, so maybe there's some cheaper shipping. People who do this all the time could probably get stuff cheaply shipped or cheaper shipped than I can. Ship cheaper than I can. Know the ins and outs and all that kind of stuff. But you would and diapers, of course, then they're not Pampers, they're just generic brand diapers. You get them pretty cheap compared to like Pampers. But, what it comes down to is saying, a lot of the stuff that's manufactured there, they're manufactured there because of cheap labor. There are other places in the world right now who, have a lot of excess workers, and usually in any free market society, when you supply and demand, more workers, lower wages, less workers, higher wages. Take, for instance, America right now, low unemployment. We've had 3% wage growth, which we haven't had in most people's lifetime. So think about places look back after 2008. What happened is wages actually went down. The Wendy's on Tryon Road in Charlotte, North Carolina, used to have a sign up that says now hiring, paying up to $10.50 an hour, and that was before 2008. That was like 2004, because I used to go in there near my office. After 2008, the sign went down, now paying up to $9.50 an hour. Well, wait a minute. This is like 4 years later. You think wages go up, inflation and all that? Well, it's supply and demand. Wages actually went down because there was high unemployment. Ending my driving, ending my apps here, guys, sorry. So, there's places with high unemployment, therefore they'll have cheap labor, we could get it done there, and the shipping will be less. So let's say you even have to pay a little more for labor than China, but you're paying less in shipping, so your end cost winds up being the same or close to it, you still have an advantage for doing that. So again, it's not so much as a lot of companies went to China, although yes, some did. Apple goes over there to get their stuff made by that company, but that company was already there. Apple didn't start the company, and Star Telecom, or whatever it is that is actually thinking about looking to America. And my brother-in-law used to work for tool manufacturer, electric power tools and lawnmowers and stuff, and they have a plant over there they actually physically put there. So you have different ways that people are getting to China for product development and product production. Some are going over there and opening to an extent, because there's only so much you can do, owning businesses and land in China from being a foreign citizen, not like America. And a lot of it's just Chinese companies saying, hey, we've got cheap labor, we can sell ourselves, good idea, to America, who wants all this stuff and wants it cheaper. There are a ton of countries that can do that. And, we use that and say, hey, Mexico, I'm Donald Trump, all bigly up here with a lot of stuff that we can buy. If y'all open up the companies to manufacture that and sell it to us cheap enough, then we can just get it from you instead of China. Which is, well, quite frankly, a much better deal. And we now have this new North American trade agreement that Trump put together, which is actually pretty fair on trade. So we start buying more stuff, but they're not tariffing our stuff going over there, which means it might be an imbalance, but at least they're not controlling that imbalance like China is. Like, China actually puts tariffs, and that's kind of the whole argument that Trump's making right now. There are countries out there putting tariffs on our stuff that we don't put the tariffs on their stuff. Which you can say, okay, we can't make you buy our soybeans and buy our this, that, and the other. But in the grand scheme of things, if they're not hurting us, they might not be saying we're gonna make you take our product. But as long as you're not limiting our product, then it's fair trade. I think that's kind of what he's getting at. So we have fair trade with Mexico and other parts of Central and South America, which are sending hundreds of thousands of people. They're not sending, but hundreds of thousands of people are coming from those countries to America to find jobs and a nice life. What do you think would happen to Honduras if suddenly it became China? As far as manufacturing springing up, the workers, yada, yada, yada. Only thing I can say about China, and yes, I'm making assumptions and generalizations here, and stereotyping, and all the bad things. China was serious about education. I don't think some of these underdeveloped countries have the same education system that China has for educated workers. But, clothing, furniture, stuff like this, I don't really think you're going to need it. They come here and work in the construction industry. They're building houses. How hard is it to build a bed, for Christ's sakes? So I'm just putting this out there that there are, I think, some other countries that could become the new China if China's not careful. And I say replace China. And if that don't scare them, the fact that they think that we could do that, to say, yeah, maybe we better be a little more fair on our trade. And, it's not just a trade. They're intellectually stealing our property. There's a lot of stuff goes on in China that's not just the trade portion of it. I think we could dictate to some other countries, you're going to do this fairly and not steal our intellectual property and all that, and do that. We'll start, giving the advantages of no tariffs for stuff to come from your country, and it's cheaper shipping, and the wages will be a little higher, and their economy would boom. You could pick like 8 countries in South America, Central America. We could build every one of them with as much stuff as we get built in China. You'd have 8 rich countries in South America people driving Ferraris and Porsches around, and the workers having work to feed their families and stuff. Yeah, I know there's some infrastructure problems and stuff, but China didn't have all that when we first started buying from them. This has evolved and developed, and it can evolve and develop somewhere else, and I say it should.